Testing. Okay. Yeah, I can hear myself now. Okay. Thank you.
Anytime you hit an unmute, it makes it live on everything. It's not just per layer. So. All right, less than 1 minute. All right, 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Stand by for Angelina welcome in 15. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead, Angelina.
Welcome, and thank you for attending HPGM's annual meeting, coming to you virtually for the first time ever. Good morning. My name is Angelina Mosier Salazar, and I am so honored that for the second year in a row, I am your MC for the HPGM annual meeting. For those of you who were in attendance last year at the HPGM annual meeting, you know a little bit about my story. I am relatively new to Milwaukee. I moved here about a year and a half ago to pursue a wonderful job opportunity. I am currently a reporter at 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR station. All my NPR listeners out there, woo! Yes, but moving to a city where I did not know a soul can, on one hand, be a very exciting venture, but on the other hand, be something that is very challenging, right? You don't have any friends, you don't have your family, you don't have your support network, and HPGM was instrumental to me and building up those relationships and building out my network. I mean, I hustled from the ground up in the beginning. I mean, I know Von Trier because HPGM held a networking event there, right? Like the only reason I have ever been inside the Miller Complex facilities is because HPGM held a networking event there. HPGM really was my guide and my conduit to learn about a city that I really didn't know much about when I moved here. And it also gave me the opportunity to meet key people in the city who are working so hard to serve the city that they love. And for a person who was tasked with reporting on this new place, it was so incredibly helpful to me. So that's on one end, how HPGM really was instrumental. Now, on the other hand, HPGM helped me build personal relationships, which I would argue in this time and in these unprecedented times are just as important as our professional relationships. So I'll share this anecdote with you. It was last year at the annual meeting that I met a person who would become one of my closest friends, my confidant, my ride or die. And if you're tuning in right now, you know who you are. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so incredibly grateful for that because, again, our personal relationships, our friends, our family, our support system is just as important as our professional relationships. And so my challenge for those who are listening today is that in these times, in these unprecedented times, to thank those that we lean on to help us get ahead where we are today because we have stood on the shoulders of giants. Thank them. Take a moment to thank them who have helped you both professionally and personally. And I'm along with that vein of gratitude. I want to thank you, all of you, for tuning in today virtually. I want to thank our HPGM members who are making this possible right now. And so without further ado, I know we have an incredible program for you all planned. But before we actually get started, I want to let you know that you can please help us share this event on social media and tag us in your photos. This is the hashtag right here, hashtag HPGM annual meeting. So I would like to thank our members for supporting this event today and partnering with HPGM year round. We'll start off with our gold members. We have BMO Harris Bank, CBS 58, and Telemundo Wisconsin. For our silver members, we have American Family Insurance, Advocate Aurora Health, Associated Bank, Brewers Community Foundation, Kohl's, the Marcus Corporation, Marcus Hotels and Resorts, and Marcus Theaters. For our bronze members, we have Alliant Energy, Briggs and Stratton, Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, EY, Freighter Health, GE Healthcare, Husco International, Johnson Controls, Northwestern Mutual, Rockwell Automation, Visons Inc., We Energies, and University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Business. I would also like to thank our corporate and educational and members for their support. Now, I would like to introduce HPGM Board Chair, Chief Executive Officer of the Democratic National Convention Host Committee, Raquel Vilmanowitz.
Thank you, Angelina, for the warm welcome and for joining us as MC once again. Hello, Milwaukee. It is so good to be here, even virtually. On behalf of the HPGM Board of Directors, thank you for joining us today and for your partnership year-round. The past year has been a time of change for HPGM. We have a lot to celebrate and more to look forward to in the coming months. At the beginning of the year, our staff and board of directors embarked on a new strategic plan, the results of which you can see outlined in our 2020 annual report. In March, we were thrilled to welcome 5 new members to our board of directors. Hector Alfageme from GE Healthcare, Sandy Esquivel from Northwestern Mutual, Jesus Gonzalez from Rockwell Automation, Felipe Musquiz from Johnson Controls, and Benjamin Wagner from Habish and Rotier. We were pleased to add 2 new educational partners to our matching scholarship program, Alverno College and Carroll University. Thanks to their commitment and the continued commitment of all of our matching partners, HPGM is awarding scholarships to more students than ever before. Despite challenges presented by the move to a virtual environment, our team continues to find creative ways to engage our members. We hosted our first ever Financial Literacy Week in April and offered special content for Mental Health Awareness Month in May. Currently, a cohort of our members are participating in a productivity workshop series with our partners Rockwell Automation. As we work to serve our members, we know that the world we lived in just a few months ago is not the same world we live in today. The priorities of our members have shifted, so we must adjust our priorities as well. Our fundraising and programming for the remainder of 2020 will focus on how to support our student and professional members in 2 key areas. 1, access to higher education, and 2, connection to employment and career development opportunities. It's been such an honor to serve as board chair for HPGM. I am humbled by your partnership, openness, and generosity. We look forward to working with all of you to form even stronger collaborations with the ultimate goal of making Milwaukee and Wisconsin a more inclusive and equitable place for Hispanics. Now, I'd like to introduce our interim executive director, Kim Schultz, to continue today's program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raquel, and thank you to our entire board of directors for everything you do to celebrate the HPGM mission. I'd especially like to thank Raquel for all she's done for HPGM throughout her many years of service on our board. I so appreciate everyone joining us today for our first ever virtual annual meeting. I'd like to give a special shout out to Stephanie, Veronica, and Evelyn on the HPGM team for all of their hard work to making today a reality. Things might look a little bit different this year, but our team is working hard to deliver value for our members, and I'd like to share a brief video highlighting their work.
The number of Hispanic workers is increasing in almost every occupation in Metro Milwaukee. Yet, Hispanics are highly underrepresented in every occupational category that pays a median annual wage of $60,000 or higher, including management, business and financial operations, healthcare practitioners, and computer and mathematical occupations. The Hispanic population continues to fuel growth in Metro Milwaukee. Its success, your success, is critical to the region's long-term economic destiny. HPGM is committed to opening doors and eliminating barriers for our members through scholarships for students pursuing associate, undergraduate, and advanced degrees, professional development and leadership workshops, internships and career connections, trainings and matching for nonprofit board service, and networking opportunities. HPGM is advancing Hispanics and staying true to our mission and values, because you matter to us and we're here for you.
To learn more about HPGM and view our brand new 2020 annual report, aptly themed A Year of Change, please visit hpgm.org. And if you aren't already an HPGM member, you can join online at any time. We'd love to have you. Our programming plans for the remainder of the year will include our first ever virtual career fair, the return of our board pipeline initiative, and the development of expanded internship training programs for our HPGM student members. During this time, we will also do everything we can to grow our scholarship fund and allocate additional funding dollars to emergency funding for students, including those students with DACA or undocumented status. Now, we are so excited to celebrate our amazing scholarship winners. First, I'd like to give a sincere thank you to our dedicated scholarship committee members for their time and their valued input in the process this year. Our committee members are Dr. Wilma Bonaparte, Vice President of MATC Mequon Campus, Regina Flores, Manager, Contract Compliance at Milwaukee Public Schools, Pedro Hernandez, Community Redevelopment Attorney for the Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee, Alberto Maldonado, Director of the Roberto Hernandez Center at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Tom Parks, Director of Retirement Plan Services at Annex Wealth Management, Allison True, Director of Communications for 16th Street Community Health Centers, and Dr. William Welburn, Vice President for Inclusive Excellence at Marquette University. We are so honored to showcase the biggest class ever of HPGM scholarship winners. We have 34 amazing winners this year, and I can say that Milwaukee's future is very bright. If you'd like to learn more about each of our winners and hear from them in their own words, we asked them all to put together a home video, which you can find on our website at hpgm.org/2020 scholarship winners. Well, we can't bring all of our winners together on stage this year. We did have a great time taking our students' headshots in a safe, socially distant environment on a beautiful Milwaukee evening. We're sad that we can't have everyone together this year, but we were so happy to be able to give something special to our winners and showcase everything they do. So please take a look at our video.
Two-year degree scholarship recipients are Maria Sandoval Jimenez, Bárbara Montano, Elizabeth Pérez Martínez, Rusbel Bautista, Yahaira Rodríguez. Undergraduate degree scholarship recipients are Leticia Cortés, Cassandra Abarca, Margie Alvisures, Cristina López Prado, Paula Lobo, Aarón Rodríguez, Ramón Rocha, Ángela Amy Campos, Liliana de León, Andrea Alonso, Melissa Palacios, Ciana Colón, Noel Landeros, Heriberto Becerra, Beda Inchauregui, Claudia Mejilla, Jessica Gómez, Agnes López Flores, Marcela Callapina, Chelsea Inchauregui. Advanced Degree Scholarship recipients are Shaheen Christie, Melissa Rios, Lilian Quiones, Edwin Guevara Romero, Eli Martínez, María Teresa Serna Hernández, Erika Vega, Bernadette González, Lisette Ortiz Reyes.
Thank you to all of our scholarship sponsors for supporting our scholarship program this year. We've been able to grow our scholarship program over the past few years because of the support of our matching partner schools. They are Alverno College, Marquette University, Milwaukee Area Technical College, and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I want to give a sincere thank you for those schools investing in their Hispanic students. This year, we received more scholarship applications than ever before. And I can personally tell you that every student who applied is very deserving of a scholarship. While we wish we could award every student, we're only able to award about half. Just 2 weeks ago, we set a goal of raising an additional $2,000 to increase our scholarship fund. And thanks to generous donors like many of you, we surpassed that goal and are now at more than $2,300. So we've set a new ambitious goal for ourselves to reach $5,000 by the end of August. If you are able during this time and willing to donate, you can support our scholarship program and help us award even more dollars to students in the future. You can donate right now by texting annual meeting 20 to 76278, or you can donate anytime at hpgm.org. We are so appreciative of your support and for joining us today. I can't wait until we can see all of you together once again in person. And now I'd like to bring Angelina back to kick off our awards program. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kim. We are pleased to highlight one of our newest matching scholarship schools, Alverno College, as our 2020 Corporation of the Year. Alverno has been a partner of HPGM since 2015. In 2017, Alverno College became the first in Wisconsin to be designated a Hispanic serving institution. We are proud to call many wonderful Alverno students and alumni HPGM members. Now, for a few more words about our Corporation of the Year.
It seemed like the way Alverno was welcoming me was more authentic, and I felt like the people really cared about me.
They made me feel like I belonged. They made me feel like I was a sister already.
I think we all feel that connection of like, we're not just students attending a college or class together. We do get a little bit more connected.
They're your sisters, and it's a network, it's family. It's just a really nice sense of community that you have for the rest of your life.
And professors are still like attentive to what you need and how they can help you. It's not just here are the facts, here are the formulas, here's how to do like everything, but they also show you like life skills.
I think they prepare us for the future.
I feel like I'm welcome, I feel accepted, I feel like I'm at home.
Alverno will always be your home. You will still be an Alverno sister, and they will always be your home here.
This year, HPGM received another impressive group of nominations for Professional Leadership Awards. I would like to thank the HPGM Awards Committee for their work reviewing nominations. It is never easy to make decisions between such talented candidates. So thank you to Raquel Filmanowitz, Chief Executive Officer of the Democratic National Convention Host Committee, Christine Hill, owner of Christine Hill, Felipe Musquiz, Vice President and General Counsel of Global Chillers and Industrial Refrigeration at Johnson Controls, and Mark Sablejack, co-founder of Sablejack and Budish, Christopher Schreiber, partner at Michael Best, and Friedrich, Oscar Tovar, staff assistant to the mayor and office at Mayor Tom Barrett. We are so proud to showcase this year's accomplished winners. I am excited to moderate a panel to learn more about them and their work in our communities. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the 2020 HPGM Leadership Award winners. Distinguished leader, we have Irasol Arce from Northwestern Mutual. Community leader, Ian Bautista from Greater Milwaukee Foundation. Rising leader, Fabiola Ramirez from Carmen Schools of Science and Technology. HPGM ally is Peggy Williams-Smith from Visit Milwaukee. And student leader, Carla Sofia Loera from UW Milwaukee. So we have asked our members to help us gather questions for our panel today. Thank you to everyone who submitted suggestions. And let's get this panel underway. So thank you to everyone who is joining us for this panel. I am seeing your lovely faces pop up now on screen. Excellent. I'll just give you all a moment to tune in, get your cameras on. All right, so I'm going to start off with a general question to anyone who feels so compelled to kick this thing off. I won't call anybody out at first. So has the current situation with the pandemic changed the way you approach work in any way? Has it changed your plans and how you go about your work?
Well, I can start. That's a loaded question that you have. I took a new position in November of 2019 after 22 years with the same company. And I took a position which was to promote travel and tourism and make Milwaukee an amazing place to come and visit. And I was headed into the year of Milwaukee. We were going to host major conventions. We were going to be on the map. And obviously the pandemic put a quick halt to all of those plans. So really having to take a look at what my team's focus was, what we were doing, and how we had to pivot to make sure that we could address what our partners in the city needed to make sure that they were able to survive. So it's really been 5 months of change, saying one thing and then having to go back. I started with, we're going to get over this. By August, we'll be fine. And then having to continuously go back and say, all right, we're not there yet. So it has been extremely enlightening for me on how to learn to accept change. And that change is so constant. And it has been a year that I will never, I'm sure that many of us will never forget.
Definitely. A year that many of us will never forget. I mean, here we are bringing you the first virtual ever HPGM conference, annual meeting. I'm sure we didn't expect to be doing this anytime soon. So I actually want to follow this up specifically to Peggy. With organizations like Visit Milwaukee, how can they play a role in destigmatizing and de-stereotyping predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods?
Well, as I said, Visit Milwaukee's role is to increase the economic impact of tourism across the community. And in the past, I think that the focus has always been on areas with high concentration of tourist destinations. And the focus that we are trying to create here now is to create an equitable and far-reaching tourism economy across the city. And this includes highlighting areas that might be off the beaten path for a typical tourist, but it's a local must-see. It includes a wide range of attractions from hotels to restaurants to retail shops to event venues, and includes the places and people with captivating stories to tell. Not only in the established neighborhoods that people always think of, like the Third Ward or Walker's Point, but also in burgeoning neighborhoods like Harambe, Clark Square, Silver City, historic Mitchell Street. Our neighborhoods in Milwaukee, all 191, are incredibly diverse and full of authentic Milwaukee experiences, and that's really what we want people to see. So our goal is to redefine Milwaukee stereotypes and highlight the people and experiences that make Milwaukee unique. We want to highlight the architecture, the churches, the restaurants, the museums, the shops, and the vibes of these neighborhoods so that anyone can see themselves reflected in the city of Milwaukee. And we really truly feel that the more we encourage visitors to experience these local businesses, that will help us to break down the stereotypes of our city and our residents. And that not only includes leisure tourism, but convention business as well. And how do we help convention attendees experience these neighborhoods away from downtown for a more well-rounded experience of the city?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Peggy. And even for highlighting, Milwaukee has almost 200 neighborhoods. And as you mentioned, you know, incredibly diverse. So I'm going to pose this question to Irasol. You know, how can we get some of that diversity that we have in our communities, right? How can organizations become more inclusive at work? How can they become more diverse, create a more diverse workforce?
I mean, I think companies really need to look at various different things. And so Peggy was talking about kind of the reputation of our community and what we stand for. I think that's a really important aspect for companies to be thinking about as well, is to be figuring out how do you create the right reputation that makes it even attractive for diverse talent to come into. What type of setting are you creating for diverse talent, and how are you coming to the community to make sure that you're building trust with them? I think that's a really important aspect of making sure that we have an inclusive culture, but also so that we're making sure that we're attracting the right talent to our organizations. I think also making sure that they're reaching out to the community in really active ways, whether it's something like this event and the partnership with HPGM, or various different partnerships that they're making in the community. I think especially among Latinos, relationships and trusts are really important. And so for companies to reach out and make sure that they're building that trust and building those relationships, I think is a really important aspect of making people feel like they belong and they're welcome.
So Irasol, what I hear you saying is that this recruitment process, this relationship building is incredibly important with the community. But this is something that I am particularly interested in. How do companies not only recruit diverse talent, but end up hiring that talent, giving them a job, right? Promoting them and investing in that talent that they have in their organization?
Right, and I think you know what you're getting at is that oftentimes there's a lot of time spent in identifying talent, but then they don't actually make it into the hiring process, and they don't actually get hired on by the company. And so again, one of those pieces is reputation. Building that trust in advance is an important part. Another thing that I think could be really helpful in making sure that they're actually hiring diverse talent is for companies to look at their recruiting processes. There was a study that was done on kind of the power of two during interviews. And so if you, for example, have one woman or one person of color in an interview, the likelihood that they'll actually get hired is very slim. Versus if you actually bring two women or two people of color into the interview process, the likelihood that they'll be hired actually increases. So really making sure that you're understanding how the setup or the design of your recruitment process is developed is an important part of that. The other thing that we look at is making sure that we're debiasing job descriptions, again, to make sure that we're making it attractive for diverse talent to come into the process. Having diverse review panels is also a really important aspect of it, because everyone comes with their own lens, every reviewer comes with their own lens, and so me as a Latina, I might be able to see more potential in a Latino than maybe someone else, and so having that diversity in the review panel is an important part. I also think the courting process is really important. In my experience, on my way to coming to Northwestern Mutual, the company and an executive officer of the company essentially courted me for about 2 years before coming into the organization.
Wow,
and so we
2
had
years.
we had met in the community doing work in our respective roles, and he saw promise in me and potential in me. And so there wasn't even a job at the time that I was interested in or that I wanted to apply for, but he wanted to make sure that that Northwestern Mutual was on my radar and that they were on my radar. And so he immediately scheduled some sessions for me to meet with leaders at the organization who might be a good fit for me in the future. And ultimately, he became a really great mentor of mine and became my first hiring manager at Northwestern Mutual. And so that investment of time, I think, was a really good example of how leaders should be thinking that it's not just the recruiter's job to find talent, it's also hiring managers who are looking for diverse talent to invest the time to nurture and develop long-term relationships.
Sol, thank you so much for sharing your personal story, because that really illustrates just how much time, how much energy it takes to get diverse talent, not only in the door, but also wanting them to stay.
Absolutely.
Right? So I want to direct this question to Fabiola. What do you feel we could do as a community to better set up our students for success, specifically our Hispanic students? What could we do as a community?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're currently experiencing a global pandemic and economic crisis. Our children are at cages at the border, and we continue to see police brutality and violence and many forms of anti-Blackness in our society. As a result, our students, our families, our educators have all endured and continue to endure a very hard time and an experience of loss. I think the best way to set up our students for success, especially in this time, is by prioritizing love, support, and an equitable learning experience. Many of our Latino students have become caretakers and family providers during this time. It is our responsibility to partner with families and make sure that we figure out the best ways to support our students. This is the time for all of us, not just educators, to step in and mentor, tutor, play with, and check in on our youth, on their personal, emotional health, physical health. We are about to embark on the most important education journey in history, education year in history. And I think the best way for us to set up our students for success is by having all hands on deck.
Wow. All hands on deck. Can you guys still hear me okay? Or is there a little bit of, okay, all right. I'm seeing head nods. All right, excellent. I loved what you said, Fabiola, just about how important this education year is going to be for our students, right? And so I want to get to a question that we were asked about. For students, like, you can't pursue what you can't explore, right? So how can nonprofits and even for-profit organizations better support students with their career exposure as early as middle school? And especially in this time where we're looking at maybe virtual classes, how can organizations get in that early?
Yeah, thank you. I would love to see more organizations giving small internships or exposure opportunities to our middle schoolers. I think the opportunity is there now that we are in virtual spaces, and that can look very, it can be a very unique and creative opportunity for students to zoom into different spaces in the professional world, or be able to have conversations with a mentor that shares a really important part of their identity and that is doing the work that they envision themselves doing in the future. I would love to see our community partners come into our schools and mentor young people in middle school. They're just in such an important age developmentally, and we really need to wrap around them and give them those opportunities that the older Latino generation we dream of having or seeing our young people have in the future. And so we can only do that if we are really doing the work to support, mentor, and pour into our schools and our children during this time.
And again, like, what I'm hearing from you is that this global pandemic that we're in, right, has set up a lot of things that are now virtually. But what I hear you saying is, like, actually that could be beneficial. That could be a tool. That could be something that we can do to better and easier have access to our young students. So I want to point this question to Ian, and I'm going to start off with a quote here that was shared with us. Success is measured by the lives you touch. How can we, as Hispanics, leverage our networks in our community to be able to guide one another along? So this is like taking, Fabiola's point and broadening out outside of the educational sphere. How can we leverage our contacts to help our community as a whole?
Great. Well, thank you for the question. I first and foremost want to just express my gratitude to HPGM for the acknowledgement, and acknowledge too that I'm kind of the thorn among the roses of these amazing mujeres that are the fellow award winners. So congratulations to all of you. In terms of networking and leveraging that, I think we just have to be willing to answer the call, right? When people reach out to us, they have a question, they have a request, something that we may be in a position to help with. I think we have to respond to that, and we have to show that level of care and that level of desire for each other to be successful. And sometimes that's not what society tells us we should do. There's a real kind of strong societal norm around competition and trying to be better than someone else, or trying to one up, you know, another organization or another professional to compete for the attention. So, you know, something that I found in my, you know, career is that when you help others, that's kind of sowing the seeds of you know, future rewards or future karma to come back to you in a positive way. And so I think if you help one another, you respond to that request when they reach a hand out, asking for advice, asking for, you know, something tangible that we can help with, that we're in a position to do, to respond. And then the flip side of that coin is to make sure that we don't hesitate to ask when we need the help, or when we're kind of struggling, or there's a resource that we don't know how to attain, but we know somebody that does, to make that ask, to reach out. Absolutely. And to not be shy about making that request.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh yes, because that, you know, for so long as a professional myself, I thought that maybe asking and saying, hey, I need help, that might show a weakness. Right, but now I've come to learn in my career that actually what that shows is a profound amount of courage and bravery and trust to say, I believe that you could help me get to this next step. I believe that you have some information that could help me advance. So one thing that I really would like to know about is, how can we as a Hispanic community begin to create those partnerships and solidarity work with other minority groups?
Yeah, and then I think that's very critical, especially in a city like Milwaukee, where you know, we're a city that our population is majority people of color. We all can't be successful until we're all successful, right? As the, you know, the plurality of Milwaukee, the Black community has challenges and struggles. If we don't become an intimate part of the solution to pursuing the solutions and the progress that the Black community defines for itself, then we're doing a disservice to our whole city. So we have to see our humanity and other people's experiences. And until, you know, we're all successful, we just can't get ahead as a city. So I think it's time for us to kind of get out of our sometimes kind of parochial view of how we view community, and view one another as community as well. There are many kind of progressive, very smart, very energetic leaders that are longing for the opportunity to work in solidarity across ethnicity, across gender, across sexual orientation, across race. I think we just have to, again, kind of be willing to answer the call, to reach our hand back out the other half of the way, and then also to reach out ourselves when we find the possibility that if we just had a Black ally or an LGBT ally to be able to achieve something, that we could, you know, reach out and make that connection. I think we would be impressed by the reach back that we get as well. And
you know, you're talking about allyship, you're talking about solidarity, and with these renewed calls, right, and demands for racial inclusivity and for equity, I do have to say that one area where I have been incredibly inspired is by the youth and by young people. And so I am going to now turn to Carla, and I want to ask you, Carla, just, you know, what has been the most challenging part about navigating the college experience?
Hi, so the most challenging thing that I feel like I've experienced throughout college is just the transition. Just kind of going into a large university, being a minority in a university where the majority doesn't look like me, doesn't speak my same language. It's just kind of navigating that, trying to build relationships with a professor who has a classroom of 200 students, figuring out what buildings to go to, who can I ask. But I feel that throughout my college experience, I've had organizations very early on, like HPGM, who's helped me reach out mentors from my own university, meet people who have been able to guide me in ways that maybe my family members might have not been able to kind of guide me through. Also being one of the earlier on college Hispanic college students, because not many of my family members have had that same experience I have. So it's kind of just navigating my way throughout college that has been the tough part.
Well, I know I will speak personally, but I will also speak for all of HPGM and our members now. We want someone like you to stay and to retain you and your talent here in Wisconsin, right? So what do you think that maybe organizations can do to make sure that you stay here, Carla, and you set up your professional networks and thrive here in this state?
I'm going to just go back to what was said earlier about building those relationships, building that trust. If that is built on earlier on, like from freshman year and not just in my senior year, I feel like it would help me already have places I can apply right off the top of my head, not looking outside of the city. And just having those relationships is going to help me realize on my senior year, oh, I actually know this person, or
Yes.
this person had already signed me up for this and this and that. So I feel that if those relationships are built on earlier on and organizations are looking at us at that early stage and not just at our senior year, it would help retain a lot more students here in Wisconsin.
I am definitely pulling themes from this panel where it is relationship building, genuine relationship building. Now, this is not, and even coalition building and solidarity and allyship. This is not something that happens overnight, but something that takes time and trust. So I'm going to open it up to all of you now with this question. Oh, I love this question. What would you tell your younger self that you wish you had known? Be honest.
I'm happy to jump in on this one. So I would say that whether we're talking about textbooks or boardrooms, even if you don't see people who look like you belong. I think it's really hard to see yourself in positions of influence or power if you haven't seen someone who looks like you in those roles. And so I can even think back to the first time in high school was the first time that I had actually read something that mentioned kind of the Latino experience in my history textbooks. And I remember it distinctly because it was about the Spanish conquest. And what they were pointing out about the Puerto Rican people was that Spaniards were mixing with the Puerto Rican women, the tainas at the time, to better the race, mejorar la raza, which is something that we often hear in our community very often. So instead of learning about the Borinqueniers who bravely fought in the US military, or the Brown Berets who were fighting for social justice, I was reading a few lines in a textbook about mejorando la raza, about improving the race, which struck me. And the first time that I actually saw a woman in leadership that was Latina, again, wasn't until high school, where I was a public ally scholar, and one of the presenters was a Latina broadcaster, and I was in awe of her because she looked like me. She was a brown woman in a leadership position that was so inspiring to me. But I think back to kind of how impactful that was to me, but I also recognize that many young people don't have those same opportunities and won't see themselves in books or in on stages. And so I want them to know that we come from a long history of heroes and leaders, and I really hope that that inspires them to move ahead.
Absolutely. That was beautiful. Very well said.
It was. I look at when I was at my younger self, and I think it's really surrounding yourself with the right people. And I was fortunate that my first mentor was Hispanic, and she was an amazing person in hospitality when I started my career nearly 22 years ago downtown Milwaukee, Nancy Hernandez was not just a mentor, she's a sponsor. She made sure that every single time there was a conversation to bring me into that conversation, which allowed me to have a seat at the table. So, you know, when you are looking around, and I didn't know it at the time when it happened to me, of just how impactful that would be in my career moving forward. So making sure you surround yourself with the right people.
Wow. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories, for sharing your anecdotes, for just those diamonds of wisdom. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for our panelists. Thank you for the people who tuned in at home. If you were inspired by today's program, please consider making a donation by texting annual meeting 20 to 76278 or visiting hpgm.org anytime. Please mark your calendars as well for the first ever virtual HPGM Gala on Friday, October 30th. Thank you to the HPGM team, More Events, Nicolette Lara, Foundation Films, and Magic Productions. You guys aren't here. You can't see all this intricate setup that we have going on right now, but it was a full-on production. So thank you for making today possible. And thank you for your continued support. Have a great day.